Do we have a seconder?
Yeah, fine here as well. I can second that.
Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, those against?
Aye.
Any abstentions? That's carried. And moving to the work program, item 5.1, directly to the action tracker, and seek the membership of the Joint Committee receiving the October 2023 Joint Committee action tracker. Someone move the receipt of that item, please.
Yes, I'm happy to.
Thank you, Georgina. Do we have a seconder?
Jack, I'll second that. Thanks.
Thank you, Jack. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. And moving to the agenda item on page 16, the Joint Committee Forward Work Plan. That the motion is to receive the Joint Committee Forward Work Plan. Mover for that, please.
I can move that, Councillor Sayers.
Thank you, Greg. Do you have a seconder?
I'm happy to move it, Tammy. John Blackwell.
Thank you, John.
Second.
That the Joint Committee received the Forward Work Plan for October 2023. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Those against?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Thank you. That's resolved. And down to the Poutātaki update report. Before handing over to Justine, that the Joint Committee received the report, Poutātaki report dated 30th of October 2023. Someone move the receipt of that update, please.
Jack, happy to.
Yep, thank you, Jack. And seconder?
Amy can second.
Thank you, Amy. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Those against? No abstentions. I'll pass it back to you, Justine. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. Thanks, everyone. Just a couple of comments, if you like, before I open the floor to questions. Firstly, and as I mentioned earlier this morning, this report really highlights that the KMR program has come into a period of maturity. There's still got a lot of work to do, and obviously a lot of new things are being implemented and rolling out. But what it does show us is the incredible amount of hard work by the team and our many landowners and partners to get where we are today. So 22 months into full operational program delivery, the report highlights a number of our key performance indicators, which shows that we've moved out of the startup phase. We are scaling up and will continue to scale up, and we're moving into a period of, if you like, full operations. And a couple of things I just particularly like to underline. One is that we really have now fully moved from waterway adjacent projects and associated co-funding investments into projects and co-funding investments that are across the wider landscape in line with our soil conservation strategy and action plan. And that's a really big pivot for the program and expansion for the program. And for all of those, for the avoidance of doubt, and for all of those listening, we are expecting expressions of interest. They're very brief, they can be very brief, by the 13th of November for some of that larger scale planting, forest restoration or regeneration, and some of the other activities that we're now funding at the landscape scale. So it's a very significant shift. Just want to shout out to the team for their hard work. We are also really focusing right now around communications and engagement activities. Very aware it's a really significant catchment in terms of scale, and we're continuing our journey to make sure that we use all possible communications and outreach and engagement channels, including channels and by partners, to reach our landowners with whom we contract directly to undertake projects through our co-funded support. One of the things I would really like just to also mention here is that we are starting a range of webinars that will allow greater outreach to for those people who cannot travel to see us in our in-person events. There are many in-person events, but obviously over large catchments, that's still quite a lot of travel for people. So our digital work and some of the outreach and engagement that are new types of engagement will be really ramping up in the next couple of months. So thank you for that. Just shy of 660 landowners we've engaged with over the catchment. Sometimes that's, perhaps seen as a small number, but that's over a third of the catchments in the landowners in the catchment. And we've had 509 sediment reduction plans contracted. Some of those projects will be finished, some will be in train, and some will be just kicking off with a further 113 sediment reduction plans in development as of the 30th of September. So a very significant ongoing scale up in program delivery. A couple of things also I would like to just point out is that we're really focusing at the moment around learning from the winter 2023 planting. We've had some really good deliveries. We overachieved against our aspirational targets, but we are working with nurseries and other partners through the program to understand what worked really, really well, what didn't work so well, and how we can learn and adapt the program delivery for winter 2024. And we will bring the governors back some more information on that in due course. We are also continuing to contract some of our what's called navigator projects. These are our landowners who are frontrunners or champions, if you like, all around the catchment. We are working to conclude contracts with very large scale and or innovative program delivery for sediment reduction purposes. And increasingly, coming back to my earlier point around communications and engagement, increasingly our navigators will be part of the system in KMR, part of the ecosystem that is reaching out to other landowners, reaching out to communities. On that note, I would like to also shout out to the Y Connection and their new program that's Mountains to Sea, the Y Connection program, because they will also be quite a key delivery partner accessing into schools and their parents, local community events, and we've been doing a lot of really great mahi together. And in an ongoing way, we're still continuing to support our Kaitiaki field advisors and our Kaipara-Moana partners so that they are alongside us at our shoulder to shoulder, delivering into their communities and supporting iwi. Now, last month, the governors yourselves had a bit of an update on the Whenua Whānui Fund. It's going gangbusters. There's a lot more we can do. And we're going to be focusing a little bit more around supporting scale up in those smaller scale, more community or locally led projects going forward. Some of our policy decisions that we will bring back next week will also be in that, how do we reduce barriers to entry? That's probably all I really want to call out from my report. I appreciate it's a little longer than normal because it's been a while since I formally updated you, but I'm very happy to take questions or comments from the. Thank you. So perhaps I'm happy to take questions in the order that they have come up. I believe Michelle had the fastest draw there on the hand up. So Michelle, perhaps to you first.
Okay, I'm getting good at that, right? I just wanted to page 22, Virginia's mention there about the potential conflict, and I know it's not a conflict because I'm not involved with the giving of grants, but I thought for transparency I just want to make people aware who might be observing this that long-standing work in Tapora area with school and things with the land care group and that as well, so but not involved with giving grants in this capacity. So the other questions I did have is great amount of liaison that you've had there with all those different parties and things. Have you generally ever found that there's a good alignment between them? Is there any conflicts between them that you've discovered? And also does the Auckland Council mention there include our Healthy Waters Department as well?
Kia ora, thank you for those questions and thank you for raising our interests. We do note those, and we only reference in this paper the interests that are financial under the Lamia Act. But
Yeah.
we have updated and monitor closely all of the wider interests from our governors. In terms of my senior level engagements over the last couple of months that are listed in the report, yes, generally speaking, quite good alignment. I guess I can summarise the feedback, the conversations in a couple of ways. One is that there's a surprise and support for how quickly we have scaled up over the 22 months we've been fully operational, and lots of support around that. What that tells us is that ongoing communication and engagement to everyone who has an interest in the program, which is everyone who's living in the catchment for now. That's a really important part of our mahi and that we're going to continue to really focus on. I'll be honest, it's really difficult to communicate to everyone at this busy time. People are pretty time poor and may not understand what we do. So we've got a range of activities and training in the communications and engagement space to really lift our visibility and profile. But we're doing what we can, and it's great when people do engage with us and understand what we're trying to do and how fast, how well we're scaling up. The second piece of feedback is, and it's a really positive piece of feedback, is thank goodness you've got into the whole of the landscape. So we've been engaging particularly effectively in the last couple of months with the primary sector, primary industry entities and interests, and I think this shift from waterway adjacent projects into the being able to operate across the whole landscape has really generated a lot of interest that's new. And we have been engaging with these groups previously, but there wasn't that sense of mutual or common area of interest or intersect that we could work together,
Right.
and now is. So that for me, that's really encouraging. And I'm not sure where some of these partnerships will go, but for example, it may not be silver fern farms would be a great example of where we're really trying to understand how can we support our long-term goals, which are good for New Zealand. So good for the environment, good for people, good for jobs, and good for market value. So that's one of the engagements. But the feedback's pretty consistent around welcoming our shift into the whole of the landscape. The third part is not so positive. It's the feedback from many groups is around the uncertainties and ongoing uncertainties in the policy and regulatory environment, and that's not meant to critique central government or local government of any persuasion. What it's just speaking to is we're at a time of quite a lot of change in the policy environment, particularly in the carbon space, in the biodiversity space, potentially in the freshwater space too, and our landowners who are really wanting to do the right thing. They do, and they are. But many of them are still wanting to work with us irrespective, because our work supports them in their long-term aspirations for their land, and some of them want to have confidence that what we are supporting them to do will meet future regulatory or policy or legislative requirements. So we're sort of still seeing that uncertainty in our environment, our operating context, and I think we'll see that for a little while.
Cool. Thanks, Justine.
Now, I may have missed who was next. It was either Jack or John. Jump in.
It's me. I can see the numbers.
Sorry, Amy, go for it. Go for it.
It's me, and then Tame, and then
Okay,
John,
sorry,
and then
sorry.
Jack. It's a long line. Kia ora, Justine. I just wanted to just really quickly acknowledge that shift that has happened around, from being on the margins of waterways into the landscape, and just thank you and the team for all the work that's gone into moving us into this space. It's taken a lot of effort and a lot of time. And I guess just from a local government perspective, it's extremely timely that KMR is in, throughout the landscape now, because of the work that's coming through from government to local government really is asking us to be in that space too. So often reflect on how lucky we are to have KMR happening in our region. And I'm sure Auckland Council feels similar, because this program is at the forefront of that work, which all councils need to do over the next while. So just feel really lucky to have you and the team kind of blazing a trail and having some lessons learned quickly and seeing what's working well and where we have challenges. So just acknowledging you, I guess, for the work that's underway, and we'll continue to look to KMR as kind of an exemplar for our region and the way that we want to operate as a regional council into the future. So kia ora.
Kia ora, Amy, thank you. And look, it's both councils we're in quite live and close dialogue with. I really appreciate it. I forgot to answer the last part of Michelle's question there, but yeah, and look, there will be differences of opinion, maybe some different timeframes in there, but KMR is very ready to support our partners and signatories to the MOU in this space, because it's actually what we were designed to do. It's just managing how we do that at a time where we've just pivoted into the whole of the landscape. So that's a very live set of discussions and a really positive set for now. Kia ora. Tammy?
Thank you very much for the outline. Part of the workshop presentation earlier was around some discussions that were held with Whangarei District Council. And I wanted to raise the point around the Hikurangi repo. Now, somehow there's this perception, and I'm not good. The subcommittee that met to discuss next steps in that whole get up was convened at the same time as we were engaged in another sort of set of discussions with the Whangarei District Council, or another part of the Whangarei District Council, so I couldn't get along to the meeting. But the perception is that KMR's funding is to be considered in the scheme of whatever it is that they are considering doing on the Hikurangi Swamp. I'd just like to make it known that KMR and the funding that we received was not about repatriating that legacy that's been on the books of the Catchment Commission down through the ages, now sitting with the Whangarei District Council. And if there is any perception of that happening now, we will be making that known directly to the Crown as Kaipara-Moana. That KMR and the funding we received through Jobs for Nature was not about that bulk retirement package of doing something with a festering blot on the Whangarei District landscape. You know, we were both there at the presentation, the early parts of KMR, and I just like it to be recorded at a KMR level that if there are discussions about the part that KMR plays in the remediation of the Hikurangi Swamp scheme, by all means, on our terms, not their terms. It's going to take a little bit more than the total funding that KMR has for job, you know, through the Jobs for Nature, for the whole catchment, and what it would cost to retire and remediate what it is that's being created out there. And this is not intended to throw any curveballs at all, but I get a little bit tired of hearing the same rhetoric that we, as Kaipara-Moana, have received some treaty settlement funding, and we should be giving a portion of that to some tribes that don't connect directly to Kaipara. It's the same scenario, sort of, you know, it's like background music when you're sitting waiting for the casket to be rolled out in the funeral service. They have this pipe music and it's sort of lingering in the background, and I'm about to go and look for the recorder to turn it off. Yeah.
Thanks, Tommy.
I'll leave it at that, but I think it's important to put it straight on the cards, is that it didn't start. That whole business did not start in 2014, and when we began our discussions with the Crown. We've known all along that it's been there, but they're now sort of, I think, better off funding through the water services entity, or the Three Waters reform is providing a bit of an option for them to do something about scoping that up properly. Good luck to them. And I think there are different avenues to address that. And I just don't like to think that, well, I'd like to think that KMR is not going to be distracted from the positive gains that have been made to date, getting tangled up in something that's locally charged and highly politicised. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Tammy. I just would like to make some comments. Thank you for those observations. And look, we did actually, in my view, we had a very positive engagement with Whangarei District Council last week. It's live streamed for those who would like to have a look at that. One of the things that I think that meeting really helped with was an understanding of what KMR does, what we're funded to do from the Crown under a Jobs for Nature contract, indeed, and what we can't do, and why we exist, and what we offer, and how much we can support and are supporting landowners to do the right thing, take action on the ground, and ideally, you know, we've got a lot of employment and local business benefits, many of which are actually flowing to Whangarei District because of where people live. So it was a really good discussion to talk about the issues at what I call a facts-based level, a technical level as well, and bring people up to date for those who'd been familiar with the program in its early days. You know, 22 months into full operational delivery, I guess we're moving and changing, evolving quite quickly. It is hard for people to keep up. The second thing I would say is that the Jobs for Nature contract that essentially provides the investment from the Crown to KMR, it's very narrow in its scope. We're here to reduce sediment, halve sediment flows in the longer term into the Kaipara-Moana. It's got some very, what I call specific swim lane aspects to that contract, and we don't and can't stretch those. For example, and this is really material to the Hikarangi conversation, we are not able to buy back land, to retire land in that way. Sometimes we in KMR will use the word retire land, and what we mean by that is take it out of active production, for example, fence off a river or a stream so that it is protected from stock. That's what we mean when we say retire. So just for the avoidance of doubt, KMR is not able to make capital purchases in that way of land or retire land when the intent or the meaning is to buy back land. I have said, though, and I will still say it is an accurate statement, that KMR does work across the full ecological catchment of the Kaipara-Moana, and that does include the Hikarangi swamp. In fact, we're actively working with a number of landowners in that area and beyond, sort of margins of the swamp, so to speak. And, you know, that work's going well. KMR contracts directly with landowners who want to take action, and a number of them already are taking action. So I think there's a narrative out there, I agree with you, Tame, that we're not doing anything in the north. In fact, it's very equitable, our investments across the ecological catchment, and I do keep an eye on that just for interest's sake. As a voluntary program, we're very reliant on landowners wanting to work with us, and where they do, we contract with them directly. So there's actually a lot of work that KMR, good work that KMR is supporting landowners to take that will ultimately support the goals around in and around the Hikarangi swamp. When someone has made a decision around what to do with the Hikarangi repo, and within our funding criteria, and that's an important caveat, KMR does stand ready to work to support fencing off of wetland or swamp areas that shouldn't be grazed, the same way we do with all other landowners. But that's on a landowner to KMR conversation. That's part of a, once decisions have been made around the Hikarangi swamp, that's once there is clarity on funding beyond, once it's clear, we will work with any landowner near or around the swamp to co-fund the activities that we are permitted and in fact empowered to support. And that can include things like restoring wetland extent, certainly supports exclusion of stock from areas that are boggy and wet. But that's, of course, a long time down the track once the broader solutions have been found. Lastly, I just want to shout out to some of the representatives from Ngā Kaitiaki o Ngā Waimari who sat down with me the other day, and it was a really good discussion. And what I would say there is we have the same objectives and the same goals. We want to make sure that the sediment flows through the awa and into the Kaipara-Moana are reduced. And as always, I stand ready to sit down and sit ready to sit down to have a conversation in a more, perhaps less informal way to see what we can do within the realms of our co-funding criteria and conditions. So that's always been an offer on the table, and it remains an offer on the table. Kia ora. Not sure who was next. I'm sorry. Was that John or Jack?
It's John.
Oh,
John,
okay.
go for it.
Thank you. 2 points. We well, you talked about Silver Fern Farms, another biggest employer in Dargaville, and last night I noticed they were advertising through their own competitions a carbon neutral supplier of beef, which is a selling point. So they're very into the environmental sort of selling position. I was on Kaipara Wastewater, and they weren't the most compliant company I've ever come across. So I've got to be a little bit careful. But is there room that we could sort of, they would probably want to get in bed with us, and whether that would be a safe thing to do, I don't know. There might be a funder. But the other thing I've got too is you've got under the Navigator projects, you've got Tengwahine Valley Group. And is that the James Parsons farm? Because I know he's getting involved with it. And why I asked is I'm on his board, and I haven't had a board meeting for quite some time. I've probably got a conflict with it.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
that is correct. It's James Parsons. Yep.
Yes.
Just if I could talk to that, I had Amy and Jack up there last week, and I wanted them drink out of the creek, but they wouldn't, which is a shame because James Parsons and his boys did it 2 weeks prior. The point I made is a great farm because all the catchment of that water is virtually all off his own farm. And so what results he gets of the outflow of that farm is purely what he's done. So I think it could be a really good project, that farm. Thank you.
Kia ora, John. I might jump in on that. So yes, James and others are involved in that Navigator project. Just for those online listening, perhaps newly, Navigator projects are large scale and often innovative projects right across the catchment. We've got 3 contracted to date, and we have more coming, possibly up to about 14, 15 across the catchment. And Ag First and in the Tangawahine Valley will be very much a Navigator we're keeping our eye on in the primary sector space, because you're exactly right. James is doing some amazing things. And in fact, in the media next week, you'll see a little perhaps even this week, actually, you'll see a profile of the project and the intent of that Navigator and what James and others in that valley are trying to achieve. So we're really looking forward to that, and people like James who are doing the right thing to be profiled as exemplars and to share their knowledge, which they're in fact invited and required to do under the Navigator contracting. Just if I may, just coming back to your Silver Fern Farms point, we haven't met in a substantive way yet. It's scheduled with Silver Fern Farms, and Northern Regional Council will be part of that conversation as well. We think there's a high degree of mutual interest in a partnership sense, a strategic partnership sense. Obviously, we do due diligence over all and our commercial and/or strategic partners, and we'll do the same with Silver Fern Farms. That said, I think you're right. There are consumer market and, in fact, processing interests in making sure that the farms and the, if you like, the supply chain for those markets is as environmentally friendly and sustainable as possible, and that those who are taking action and doing the right thing are rewarded. And we see, some of you may be aware of, I'm quite passionate about this with other hats on, but in July, Nestle took a decision around carbon. And Nestle is the largest food producer in the world, and it's actually, as an example, Fonterra's largest consumer or customer. There are a number of global multinationals who will set our agenda, if you like, here in New Zealand far more than Kaimara or local government or central government. Well, you know, those market drivers are high value and they're really significant. And so I would expect some of the conversations we've had with the financing, the rural financing sector, the rural processing sector, KMR is very ready to sit down and have conversations around what are our mutual interests going forward. And this is a New Zealand Inc issue. It's not just a Northland issue or a catchment issue. How do we ensure and demonstrate the sustainability of the supply chains for food, and bearing in mind that New Zealand actually produces food for 40 million people every year. It's a lot, and we've got some requirements from those 40 million consumers. Kia ora. Jack? Jack, you might still be on mute there. Perhaps we might move to Michelle and come back to Jack.
Oh, no, it's John.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Greg Sayers.
Oh, sorry, Greg. Sorry, yes, apologies. It's moved to Greg. Apologies.
There we go. Is it appropriate to ask about the annual report now?
We have another paper on the annual report, but perhaps give us a hint of the flavour of your questions.
Oh, that's okay. I was just, I wasn't quite sure where we were sitting, so I can wait to the appropriate time there. It's just to ask about some details around that annual report, so maybe I'll just wait to that time. Yeah,
okay.
Thanks, Justine. Okay.
Kia ora, thank you.
Kia ora, Jack. How you going?
My turn?
Yes.
My turn. Just a couple of wee things. First of all, what are the Auckland Council dates for putting their freshwater plan out to consultation? Does anyone know?
Steph, would you like to answer that?
I don't actually have those dates to hand. We are catching up with Auckland Council, I think it's at the end of next week, to hear more about their program of engagement around that.
Right. I think, look, it's not critical, but it'd be quite advantageous to all of us if there's a little bit of a delay. I mean, ours goes out on Wednesday for public consultation up till, I think it's the 3rd of March, Sunday the 3rd of March. And I guess when the document goes out, it could be used as like a springboard for engagement for us, or alternatively a stimulus for applications coming in from the clients. So I suppose it's probably something that we need to be aware of. We might get a bit extra incoming traffic. So I guess if the two councils are a month or two apart, it might smooth the workload for staff. It's not critical, but I guess it's something we have to be aware of, because I'm sure it will stimulate more applications and activity.
Yeah, they were definitely moving on a slower time frame, Jack. I just don't know exactly when.
Yeah, well, it'd be good if it was. Now the other second thing is about the challenges ahead of us all the time. I mean, I think I've told some of you that I had a car accident a couple of Fridays ago in Wellsford, and a guy called Tim Brown from Kaiwaka, he was a volunteer fireman. He just had left work, and he said, "I'm going to Auckland." I said, "So am I." So I'll give you a lift. And he went and got in the car. He said, "What do you do?" I said, "Oh, well, amongst other things, I'm a politician." And we started talking about the regional council, and he said, "Do you know if I can get any trees?" And I said, "Oh boy, have you picked up the right guy?" Anyway, so I've connected him through, but he lives at the eco village at Kaiwaka and has had absolutely no knowledge of the existence of KMR, and that really surprised me. Now, I don't know anything about the Kaiwaka eco village. I don't know what it is or where it is, but I guess I'm just giving you a little homily here because it highlighted to me that there's a group of people that live quite close to Kaiwaka that don't know anything about the that KMR. So I guess we're always going to have our challenges getting our messages out there. But
yes.
Yeah, I'm sure. But Tim seemed like a hell of a nice chap, and he was very, very keen. They're already planting anyway. So that's just a message. Thanks. Nothing else to say.
Thanks, Jack. And no problems. And look, Ben he's done a lot of work around. Sorry, can I just respond to Jack's invite Ben just to talk about some of the work we have done around Kaiwaka recently, not to defend, it's a valid point that not everyone knows about us and that's one of the challenges when you're dealing across a 6,000 square kilometre catchment. But Ben, do you want to just outline some of the work we've done in Kaiwaka recently?
Yeah, sure. So we've had the planting, we've had some advertising, and I attended the most recent Kaiwaka CAN meeting, which was held at the hall just up Kaiwaka Mangawhai Road there, which was quite good. So I spoke to quite a few interested parties there, which hopefully will trickle through. But I think that's sort of a great example of there's a bunch of people who do know about us and are doing that work, and there's planting right in the middle of Kaiwaka and big roadside signs that we're working on. And then there's someone who's like, oh, I've never heard of this thing. You kind of go, oh, do you not read a paper or watch TV? Or you're like, well, how do I get you? How do I find you? How do I get your email address? So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a challenge moving forward, but I think that number is slowly getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And hopefully we don't have to rely on you getting in cars with strangers, Jack, to get our message out there.
Thanks. I think we're done there. Who was next?
Oh, sorry, I just had a Jack asked about the timeline for the freshwater plan for Auckland Council. And I have the information here. So basically, I think it's next month. We're looking at consultation timeline, 3rd of November to 4th of December for the phase 2 public consultation. And then it comes back in front of the local boards in February next year. I just can't see when there might be an indication of adoption at this point.
I had understood that was more like November next year, so later, but things may have changed and I may not be accurate on that, so it's worth checking.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for that clarification. No, it's good. So we have had a couple of engagements, of course, and there is a big one, as Steph mentioned, end of next week. So we're staying well in touch with that. And we're obviously having Brooke Waterson, who's on the line from Auckland Council, Healthy Waters. She's a very key part of making sure that we connect in with the wider policy and Auckland Council senior people who are obviously doing things of relevance to KMR. We've got our meeting, I think, next month again at quite a strategic level. So just very aware that Auckland Council is also going through quite a few changes at the minute. So need to keep ourselves on in their space and in their vision to help out. Kia ora. I'm not sure, apologies on the iPad, I can't see what else is coming, but hopefully Tame as chair can. I'm not sure if there's anything else on the Potataki report. Otherwise we can move on perhaps.
There's no hands up at this moment.
Excellent. So I think we've done the... Excellent. So on to the annual report then, I think, and inviting Stephen for that. Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou. So you've got this short paper here with the draft of the annual report appended. So we are requesting that you approve this draft of the annual report for provision to the Ministry for the Environment, and that you delegate to the Joint Committee Chair the power to approve the final annual report, and with the ability for the Potataki to make any minor editorial changes prior to publication. Just one quick point is around the audit. So the audit has is basically concluded, and we have a draft letter that the auditors will sign once they've received the endorsed draft annual report out of this meeting. Once they've signed that, then Ben can share the audit report with you. There's a little bit of chicken and egg there, who signs first, but it needs to be the annual report. And yeah, if there are any questions or comments about those. Greg, I think.
I'm happy.
Oh, yeah.
I'm here. I think we might need to move it and second it to open the discussion,
Sure.
So, well, officially. So I'm happy to move it, Tame, if you want to move it.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. Do we have a seconder?
Happy to second it.
Oh, yeah.
Very good. Been moved and seconded. The three aspects of that resolution, please, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, any abstentions, and go back to Greg Sayers for his questions and comments. Kia ora, Greg. Are you still with us, Greg? Not quite sure whether he is there.
Can't hear him. Maybe we need to come back to Greg.
Any other comments around the annual report and what information has been presented? Okay,
I did have a hand raised. If you're happy for me to go next,
Yep, by all
Michelle.
means.
Cheers. I don't know which page of the report is. I think it's page 12 of the report, page 38 of our slides. The 5.4 M worth of settlement reduction project support. I wonder if it's better to be clarified with a dollar sign there as well. Is that appropriate?
Yeah.
And the budget figures that are beautifully laid out. They look really, it's actually a really nice way of doing it. Just say those line item kind of things with an explanation there as well. There is a potential error, I think, page 57. The K 2021-06 governance one is actually repeated. It's a repetition. There's two of them appearing there on that same page.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I've got
Thank
that
you
one
for
on my
that
list.
catch.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
That's okay. Also on page 58, the figures quoted in the digital tools systems governance and improvements figures, the exact same figures appear under the new partnerships and opportunities ones. And I'm wondering if there's been a like these incorrect figures have been copied across. I simply could see that someone could be using one as a template, copy it over, and then forget to update the figures type of thing. So because actually the figures, when you add them up, they don't add up. And I think that's could be where it is that there's different figures meant to be in one of those slots.
Correct. That new partnerships and opportunities one is incorrect.
Yes.
Okay.
So Michelle,
So,
just to clarify, this version is the version that's still got some tidy up to go to MFE.
Yeah,
That's the first aspect, and then there'll be a bunch of tidy ups of these things. It's great to hear where you've spotted them, though.
I totally understand. I can see how it will happen with the whole you focus so much on how it looks and stuff, and sometimes those figures. So I thought I'd give a bit of a go at those.
Oh, it's awesome because we've got line by line checking has yet to happen.
Exactly.
So.
Overall spreadsheet kind of snapshot was all good. Okay, and then the other just is kind of just general feedback. Absolutely love how it's written in plain speak, this report. I think it's a nice easy read and easy to understand, and so thank you very much for not making it too technical for people that are maybe very new to it and having a look. So I think that's really great for the transparency of the project. I also like how personal it is with those snapshots of what's actually happening on the ground and for those whānau and families and things. I think that's a great thing. And also the key highlights and progresses so far. There's only one observation of something that is potentially missing that I think we could capture. And I understand it's an annual report to focus on what KMR has specifically been doing. But one thing would be to potentially acknowledge how this project is a continuation of Kaipara catchment united approach, like evolving from a whole lot of localized hapa and community initiatives that have happened over the last few probably decades. And some of those are still operating. Many of those mentioned in your acknowledgement section are participants of those initiatives. And so I think it would be a nice thing to acknowledge that prior work and how this is an evolution and continuation of that. I think that enables the positive could enable that we could include a section on the positive environmental outcomes that we're already seeing. That it may not just be because of KMR initiatives at this point, there's still time lapse to come, but that there is actually already there's been positive benefits to the environment, maybe anecdotal things like, whitebait returning on some farm waterways, etc., bittern and things like that. I'm just talking about what I know we've seen in Tapora in that area with the great work that's gone over there for a long time. Twofold reason for that. You're acknowledging people's work in the past, making sure they want to continue through the KMR umbrella. But also, if you've got forward KPIs and things and expectations of what the environmental outcomes are, you're acknowledging that you didn't have a zero starting point here. And so you don't want to have inflated expectations based on, wow, in only a couple of years we've seen this already happening, but in fact it was kind of already building from that. So that's kind of a section that I think we could possibly include. Yeah.
Thank you for that, those observations. And look, you're absolutely right about we are wanting to acknowledge that we're building on a lot of really great work that's happened by many. One of the slight challenges around an audited annual report is that we have to demonstrate what sits behind the numbers. And I also am a little bit hesitant about claiming the benefits of others, but I think there's an acknowledgement of the work that's happened in the environmental and other benefits and outcomes without claiming it as ours. And that's something that we can look at. I wouldn't want us to also then have, so we've got there, as you heard, the draft and principal audit approvals. I wonder if we add, if there's numbers that go in there that without being as defensible or as auditable as one might like. So there may be other ways of having those conversations and acknowledging things, e.g. when we put this out into the public domain, or let's have a think about how we can do that. But you're absolutely right around an intent.
Yeah, just because it's like forward thinking about it as well, is that there might end up being a section in there about what are the actual positive environmental outcomes already being seen, and that acknowledgement of actually it's taken a bit longer than what what it has. So these things take time. So yeah, cheers.
Thanks, Michelle.
Are there any other comments from the Joint Committee? Well, I tend to favour what we were given on the 20th of in October 2020. I can speak with my hand on my heart, and I know what's happened from the time that MOU was signed. What I am particularly mindful about is that this is the first in the country. There is no other blueprint, and I'm absolutely clear that what numbers, milestones, facts, figures portrayed in any annual report has to reflect that. So I am sort of looking to see how much of that actually applies in other jobs for nature programs or funded programs. Because I think it's a bit of a stretch in my mind to know that you could read this and think we're doing well. I'm looking out my window now and I know the Mangakahia River catchment is not in any way, shape or form that it should be. But KMR has provided a sort of planned approach with some pragmatic steps that we could take. We need to adjust the more local variation of what all of that means. And so I'm never really subscribed to this idea of Justine knows this. I'll be the last guy that wants his bloody photo in the front of a camera or stand up on some pedestal and grandstand. And I sort of look at the list of marae there and sort of think, I'm not so sure. The reception, as I understand it, is not, it's and the solution in my mind is sticking to what we've subscribed to, and that is a memorandum of understanding and a deed of funding. We can keep the business and the activities aligned to that, we won't go too far off the beaten track, because to get us to that point, I think, is the kind of discussion we had in the workshop. What variations should we be seeking to the DETA funding? What variations should we be seeking to the MOU to enable it to go a bit faster, a bit better, achieve more? And I think that, in my mind, is a point of concerted energy that we would all benefit from, because we had to report back to our various paths. And I know for the group that put me up onto the joint committee, I had more frustration than kudos, simply because they were on one track, and, well, not they, the organisation, but individuals within that entity were on a different pathway. And the perception is that this is a sort of some kind of free-for-all where people can command different ideas with the amount of money in the budget. Well, it doesn't quite work that way. And I think of the efforts that KMI has gone through, and I think we've heard, especially this morning, the kind of variations we'd be seeking. And I'd like to paint an accurate a picture as possible to the incoming government. And if they could build into that how it aligns with other programs that started, this ngā kaitiaki o ngā wai Māori. The intention is grand, it's wonderful, but the problem is they do not come out to the areas and talk to the landowners. They sit in whāngarei and assume that they command an area of interest into areas that they have no direct influence over. And that's the annoying part. That's the local component of it that sort of says they need to be a little bit more mindful of connecting with the local landowners. And people just walk on by and ignore them. So we've lost, if you like, an opportunity. And I think the format that's been set out here does a great job, but except for that page where we start acknowledging individuals and so on, I'm not so sure about that particular part. Not because I don't agree with it per se, but I think its context is I'm not so sure whether it belongs in an annual report that's connected to a DETA funding and an MOU. Kia ora.
Thank you, Tame, for those thoughts. I believe Greg can hear again. He's got his...
Yeah, thank you. Just a few technical difficulties there, I think, Justine, but good to be back. So I don't know if there's been asked. I just had some questions around the annual report itself. I think it was page 61. So just I guess my questions are around I couldn't see the presence of any type of balance sheet, and B, was the detail, the breakdown that we've got showing there in this P&L, is that detailed enough in terms of our reporting requirements? I just wanted to be satisfied that it just seemed a little bit light compared to other reports in terms of the amount of detail breakdown and the balance sheet not being there that I could spot.
Thank you, Councillor Sayers. Steph, we've run this through the auditors, and we've worked together to come up with a format that recognises that for now we're still in Northern Regional Council, and they're treating us as if you like, not a full subsidiary, but a program that's run within NRC. So that's something that we've been taking the lead last year as well as this year on what the auditors I think are appropriate for the size and type of program we are. But Steph, you might have some extra thoughts there.
Yeah, my understanding was the template was agreed in the first year, and we've been applying that and working with the auditors in that context. In terms of the balance sheet, are you referring to the funding carried over?
No, just the breakdown of the assets, etc. Is normally seen in a balance sheet rather than that looks more like a P&L, right? Income and expenses.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yes, for now, I believe that's all we need, but it's a great question. And I think as part of our audit discussion, we'll do a debrief on how that worked. As always, maybe coming into next year, we can take another look with the auditors and either NRC or others to understand what's required now. Because I think there is a program maturation and we've been using what's been agreed, but maybe there's some evolution or adaptation that's needed. I can't promise that though, because I'm sure we're actually just guided by audit requirements around the format and the type of information included. We know for now that works. Yeah.
We do also have.
Sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say as well, the deed of funding sets out requirements for what we need to provide in the annual report. And so that was the basis for agreeing this.
Okay, well, as long as
template.
I guess I didn't have any particular issue with it, Justine and Steph. It's just that if it was comprehensive enough and if we tick all the boxes that people would be satisfied reading the report.
Yes.
So I'm not raising particular concern. They're just that it is enough.
Very good governance question to ask though, and we will look at that, I think, as we come into the debrief and certainly as the design of next year's audit process. So thank you for those thoughts.
Okay, thanks for your answers.
Thank you.
Not sure we have anything else on annual report, Tame. Perhaps over to yourself.
Well, doesn't appear so. Carry on.
I think that's the last of our papers, Tame.
Okay. All right. No, well, thank you, Kaipara-Moana kura. And I trust this weather is going to clear for everyone. It's got really low cloud at the moment at home here. Surprised we've still got IT connection, but yeah, it is what it is. And must be that 5G tower on Darcy Ruddle's place. But look, thank you one and all, and hope we can dispense with the formalities of getting the documents sorted. And Ilka, look forward to receiving your papers for sign off with our respective entities. And wish you all Wellington sends our sunshine down. Look at that, eh? We'll see how good it is this time tomorrow when we're down there. Anyway, on that basis, thank you one and all. Please enjoy your rest of your week and hope it's productive. Just for interest, there's a National Land and Water Safety Forum that I've got an invitation to attend, and one of the interests in it is the guy Rob Hewitt, who spent that time bobbing around around Kapiti Island down there. He's got a role in trying to get community engagement, and I think about our rivers and this upcoming summer, people that are going to go play, enjoying places that nature has provided, and amongst those places, of course, are some traps for novices, and we hope to maybe get some information circulated about getting that type of program running amongst our communities. I've got nothing further to add, and just check to see if any of the joint committee members have matters they want to raise. Thank you, Michelle. And Ilka, is there anything from the Ministry for the Environment? I see you've got one of the former Fisheries New Zealand starting in a senior analyst position at the Ministry, Mr.
no.
Slater. Andrew Slater. Mm.
Okay. Well,
Anyway, yeah.
warm greetings from Wellington, and we'll look forward to formally receive the annual report, and we're continue to be excited by the progress.
Thank you very much. On that note, I'd like to bring our meeting to a close, and once again, thank you, joint committee members, and thank you, Māori Kura staff. Tēnā koutou, kia tahuri ake rā. Ki te whakaaro e ki nei, kia tau anō kia tātou katoa. Te ata whai o tō tātou ariki ai hukraiti te whiwhi ngātahi ki te wairua tapu, mō ake. Āmene. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora.
Kia ora,
Nice to see
tātou.
everyone.
Kia ora.